After days of leaked extracts and interviews, Prince Harry's highly anticipated memoir, Spare, is finally officially out today.
The book deals with the prince's challenges with the British royal family and makes a series of allegations about his relationship with his brother, Prince William, and father, King Charles.
For more on this, we are joined now by royal commentator Hilary Fordwich. Hilary, good to have you with us this morning. I mean, we've been talking about it for days, but the book is finally here. It's meant to be an attempt by Prince Harry to try and reclaim his narrative, get what he calls some accountability from the royal family, as he puts it. Do you think he's going to achieve that with this?
Well, pleasure to be back with you again. Thank you for having me. But I will say the phrase unintended consequences comes to mind. It's actually very sad, of course, reading this book, that obviously he suffered greatly at the loss of his mother, but to commercialize her in such a way, it is very sad. And there is word coming from the royal family, although, you know, those that know them and those that know members of the royal household, that they're very saddened by this beyond anything. And I think the overwhelming sentiment, and this has come directly from a source very close to the royal family, is that obviously the entire debacle after Brexit really did affect the health of the former Queen Elizabeth. And I think that is something that is of great pain to the royal family. And now the red line has been crossed with King Charles because Harry has denigrated consort Queen Camilla.
Prince Harry did another interview yesterday with Good Morning America as part of the promotional tour. He was asked if he could see himself going back to the UK and returning to the royal fold. Let's hear his response.
I don't think it's ever going to be possible. I don't think that, you know, even if there was an agreement or an arrangement between me and my family, there is that third party that is going to do everything they can to make sure that that isn't possible. Not stopping us from necessarily going back, but making it unsurvivable.
Unsurvivable. That was the word he used there. What's your reaction to that, Hilary?
Yes, I mean, I agree with him on that point. But what I agree with is the fact that there has been, in history, no other member of the royal family has betrayed such confidences. He even published, in the book, there are some text extracts from conversations between Meghan and now the Princess of Wales, the former Kate Middleton. I mean, this is a real betrayal of privacy. And the greatest irony is when he talks about leaks, who has done the greatest amount of leaking here. And he knows that the royal family does tend to not respond directly. I think the biggest point here and the biggest bombshell is that he's actually put himself in grave danger. In all seriousness, this is not anybody's opinion. Given that the Taliban has responded to his count kill of 25, the actual Taliban, and overnight, the breaking news is from the university in Allahabad, there has been a protest because the students there, obviously many of them know members of the families of those that were killed by either Prince Harry or other British servicemen. He has put all of the royal family and his own family, and even actually British servicemen, in far greater danger. That is a big, no pun intended, bombshell.
And of course, that is a huge issue that goes beyond some of the allegations that he's made about the royal family. Hilary, while we have you, I also want to note, I mean, King Charles's biographer, Catherine Meyer, said in an interview with the British newspaper The Observer that Harry's book could, quote, mark the beginning of the end for the monarchy. Do you agree with that? Is that a possibility?
Well, it's not my opinion to speak on that. I'm not going to speak even for the British public, but I will let the YouGov poll speak to that. His approval rating now has plummeted, and it's very sad, actually, what he's squandered. He was beloved by the nation. Now, the only person with a lower approval rating is Prince Andrew. We all know the debacle there. I will say, again, to end on what I began with, unintended consequences, he has actually helped Prince Charles and Prince William because they are seen as taking the high road and being dignified. And last but not least, the most important thing about the British royal family is they are there, misconception by Harry, to serve the British public. And that's what they continue to do. As long as they continue to do that, the British public in a constitutional monarchy will want them and will continue to fund them through taxpayer dollars.
All right, Hilary Fordwich, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.